I found the leather journal wedged between two rotting floorboards in the basement, and the moment I opened it, I knew everything I'd believed about Jessica was a lie. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read her handwriting. Dates, names, amounts of money that made my stomach drop. $300,000. Gone. Every penny of our savings, our investment in the rental properties, the college fund we'd been building for 5 years. All of it documented in her neat, careful script, like some kind of confession she'd never intended me to find. I sat down hard on the concrete floor, the journal falling to my lap, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The basement was cold and damp, smelling like mildew and old cardboard boxes, and all I could hear was the hum of the water heater and my own ragged breathing. This was 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks before I made the decision that would change everything. But let me back up, because you need to understand who I was before that basement, before that journal, before my entire world collapsed into something unrecognizable. My name is Michael Chen, and I'm a commercial real estate developer. Or I was. That's complicated now. For 15 years, I built a solid reputation in the Phoenix area. Not flashy, not trying to be the next big thing, just steady, reliable. The kind of guy people called when they wanted a project done right, on time, and within budget. I had a small team, 5 people, including my office manager, Karen, and we'd done good work, really good work. A strip mall in Tempe that won a local design award, 2 office complexes that attracted Fortune 500 companies, a mixed-use development in downtown Phoenix that the mayor herself had cut the ribbon on. The money had been good, not private jet good, but comfortable. We lived in a 4-bedroom colonial in Ahwatukee, one of the nicer neighborhoods in Phoenix. The kind of place where people kept their lawns perfect and the HOA actually had teeth. Our house had a pool, a 3-car garage, and a guest house that we rented out on Airbnb when we weren't using it for visitors. I drove a Range Rover. Jessica drove a white Tesla. We took vacations every summer: Maui, Cabo, Cancun. We were the couple other people looked at and thought, yeah, they've got it figured out. Jessica was a financial advisor. That's how we met, actually. She was handling some investment stuff for one of my projects back in 2008, and I was immediately drawn to her. She was sharp, funny, and had this way of making you feel like she was genuinely interested in what you had to say. She had long, dark hair she usually wore in a bun, wore these expensive-looking glasses, and had a laugh that could light up a room. We dated for 2 years, got married at a small ceremony in Sedona with about 50 people, and for 13 years, I thought I had the whole package. We didn't have kids, which was a decision we made together. Jessica said she wanted to focus on her career, and I was fine with that. Meant we could be more spontaneous, take those vacations, not worry about finding a good school district. She worked at Pinnacle Financial Group, a mid-sized firm with offices all over Arizona. She was good at her job. She'd been promoted twice while we were married, and by the time this all started, she was managing about $40 million in client assets. The thing about being married to someone is that you develop this baseline of normalcy. You stop noticing the small things, the way she'd disappear into her home office for hours, the late nights when she said she was on conference calls with clients in New York, the business trips that seemed to be increasing in frequency, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I didn't think much of it because we were both busy. I had projects that demanded my attention. She had her clients. We'd see each other in the mornings, maybe have dinner together 3 or 4 nights a week, spend Sunday mornings drinking coffee and reading the paper in bed. That was our life. Stable, predictable, safe. Then, about 6 months before I found the journal, things started getting tight. Not in a way that was obvious to anyone else. Our cars were paid off, the house was paid off, we had no debt. But my business hit a rough patch. One of my biggest clients, a real estate investment trust that had been giving me steady work for 8 years, went through some leadership changes and decided to bring their projects in-house. It happened fast. 1 month I'm bidding on a $40 million mixed-use development. The next month, the decision-maker I'd been working with for years is gone, and the new guy doesn't return my calls. I didn't panic. I've been through downturns before. The Phoenix market is cyclical. I tightened the belt, told Karen we might need to cut hours if things didn't pick up in the next quarter, and started aggressively pursuing new clients. Jessica was supportive, which I appreciated. She'd bring home these fancy takeout dinners from this place she loved, and we'd sit on the patio with a bottle of wine, and she'd tell me it was just a rough patch, that my reputation was solid, that things would turn around. "You always land on your feet," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "You're Michael Chen. Everyone knows your name in this city." But then, my business accountant, Derek, called me in for a meeting. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late February, and I remember it was hot for February. Phoenix in the spring, already hitting 80 degrees by noon. Derek's office was in a strip mall on Central Avenue near his house, and when I walked in, he looked worried. Derek never looked worried. In 15 years of working together, I'd never seen him anything but calm and methodical. "We need to talk about your business account," he said, closing his office door behind me. My stomach tightened immediately. "What about it?" "There have been some irregular withdrawals, large ones. Over the past 18 months, there's about $520,000 that's been pulled out in cash transfers to a separate account. I flagged it because it doesn't match your usual business expenses, and honestly, it's concerning from a tax perspective." I stared at him. "That's not possible." "Michael, I've got the bank statements right here. Look." He turned his computer monitor toward me, and there it was. 5 transfers, each for $100,000, plus another 2 for $60,000 each. All of them going to an account I didn't recognize, with a name on it that meant nothing to me. Desert Holdings, LLC. "That's not my account," I said, hearing my own voice sound strange and distant. "I didn't authorize any of that." "Well, someone did. Someone who has signing authority on your business account. Who has access to that?" And that's when it hit me. Jessica. Jessica handled all the financial stuff for the household. She had a power of attorney on my business account because we'd set it up that way years ago for convenience. She'd said it made sense that she could pay bills directly if I was out of the country or in meetings, that it would streamline things. I'd never questioned it. "My wife," I said quietly. "Jessica has signing authority." Derek's face didn't change, but I could see the shift in his eyes, the moment he realized what this meant. "Michael, I think we need to call a lawyer." That's when everything started to unravel. That's when I started asking questions. That's when Jessica started lying. I called my divorce attorney, David Rothstein, the next morning. His office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and marble, the kind of place that cost money just to walk into. I sat across from him in his corner office with the view of Phoenix stretching out below us, and I laid out everything. The journal, the bank statements Derek had compiled, the $520,000 trail that led directly to Jessica's financial fingerprints. David listened without interrupting, his gray hair and expensive suit giving him the look of a man who'd seen every version of human betrayal that existed. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me over his reading glasses. "Do you have the journal with you?" he asked. I pulled it out. He photographed every page with his phone, methodical and precise. "Michael, this is good. This is very good. It's contemporaneous documentation, in her handwriting, which establishes intent. The bank records confirm the withdrawals. What we need now is to understand where the money went. That's the key. If she was moving it through Desert Holdings, LLC, we need to know who owns that company and what it's being used for. That tells us if this was personal theft or something else, embezzlement, money laundering, fraud against her employer." The word embezzlement hit me like a physical blow. "You think she stole from her clients?" "I think we need to find out. I'm going to need you to authorize me to subpoena her financial records, her employment records, and everything related to Desert Holdings, LLC. This goes beyond a divorce settlement now, Michael. This could be a criminal matter." That's when I made the decision that would define the next 3 months of my life. I was going to burn her down. It wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about the principle that some betrayals are too big to ignore, too calculated to let slide. Jessica hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't had a moment of weakness. She'd systematically stolen from me while looking me in the eye at dinner, while laughing with me on the patio with a glass of wine, while telling me that everything was going to be okay. David moved fast. Within 2 weeks, he'd filed for divorce and served Jessica at her office. I wasn't there to see it. I didn't want to be. But Karen, my office manager, texted me a photo she'd somehow gotten from a friend who worked in the same building. Jessica, standing in the hallway outside Pinnacle Financial Group's offices, holding the papers, her face absolutely white. She called me that night. I almost didn't answer. "Michael, what the hell?" Her voice was shaking, trying to sound angry but landing on desperate. "David Rothstein? Really? We could have handled this privately." "Could we?" I said quietly. "Is that what you call what you've been doing? Handling things privately?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "The journal," I continued. "The one you hid in the basement. I found it. Every page, every transaction, every lie." I heard her breathing change. Faster now, scared. "Michael, I can explain." "Don't." I hung up. The next blow came a week later, and this time it didn't come from me. Pinnacle Financial Group called me. Well, they called my lawyer. Turns out that while Jessica had been stealing from me, she'd also been stealing from her clients. $42 million in unauthorized transfers, spanning 5 years. The company had discovered the discrepancies during an internal audit and immediately contacted the FBI and the Arizona Securities Commission. Jessica's accounts were frozen. Her licenses were suspended pending investigation. David called me with the news, and I remember standing in my office, staring at the Phoenix skyline, feeling something that wasn't quite satisfaction. It was too dark for that. It was the feeling of watching someone you loved destroy themselves and knowing you'd helped light the match. "They're offering to settle with her clients," David said. "Pinnacle's insurance will cover most of it, but Jessica's looking at criminal charges. Fraud, wire fraud, possibly money laundering depending on what they find with Desert Holdings LLC. Michael, she's going to prison." I didn't say anything for a long time. "What do you need from me?" I finally asked. "Nothing. You're cooperating. You've provided evidence. You've been transparent about the marital finances. The FBI is going to want to interview you, but that's it. You're a victim here, not a suspect." The interviews happened in a federal building I'd never been to before, with 2 agents named Morrison and Chen. No relation, though she made a joke about it. I told them everything: the journal, the withdrawals, the way Jessica had positioned herself as the family financial manager so completely that I'd never questioned anything. They took notes, asked clarifying questions, and thanked me for my cooperation. "Your wife is looking at substantial prison time," Morrison told me as the interview was wrapping up. "Between the client fraud and the marital fraud, she's probably looking at 5 to 7 years, minimum, assuming she pleads out. If this goes to trial, she could get longer." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Is there anything you want to add?" Chen asked. I thought about the life I'd built with Jessica, the vacations, the dinners, the mornings with coffee and the newspaper. The way she'd made me feel like I was the luckiest man in the world, the way she'd been stealing from me the entire time, document by document, transfer by transfer, lie by lie. "No," I said. "I think that covers it." The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Jessica's assets were frozen pending the federal investigation, so there wasn't much to divide. The house went to me. She couldn't afford to fight for it, and her attorney wasn't interested in prolonging things. The Tesla was sold to cover some of her legal fees. The Airbnb rental income that had seemed like such a clever investment turned out to be the only clean money either of us had left. She pleaded guilty to 3 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of money laundering, and 1 count of theft. The judge gave her 6 years, which meant she'd serve about 4.5 with good behavior. She's at a federal prison camp in Tucson now, minimum security because she's not considered a flight risk, and she has no history of violence. I visited once. I don't know why. Maybe to see if I could understand. Maybe to see if she'd changed. Maybe just to confirm that it was all real, and not some elaborate nightmare I'd wake up from. She looked smaller in the prison uniform. Her hair was shorter, pulled back in a simple ponytail. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. We sat in the visiting room, separated by a table, and for a long time, We just looked at each other. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am." "Why?" I asked. "Why did you do it?" She looked away. "I was scared. Your business was struggling, and I was scared we'd lose everything. I thought if I could build a cushion, if I could create something separate that was just ours, then we'd be safe. And then it just spiraled. I started taking more. I told myself I'd pay it back. I told myself a lot of things." "You lied to me for 13 years. "I know." "You stole from people who trusted you." "I know." There was nothing else to say. I left after 20 minutes. My business recovered. It took time, but the Phoenix market rebounded, and my reputation, it turned out, was solid enough to survive the scandal. People felt sorry for me. I got work because of that pity, which was its own kind of humiliation. But eventually, the work came because of my track record again. I hired 2 new people, and we grew. Nothing flashy, just steady. I sold the guest house. Couldn't stand the idea of strangers in it. Couldn't stand the reminder of what we'd built together. I kept the main house because I didn't know what else to do with myself, and walking through it alone was somehow less painful than trying to start over somewhere new. It's been 3 years now. Jessica will be out in about 18 months, and I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not angry anymore. Anger is exhausting, and I'm tired of being exhausted. But I'm not forgiven either. I don't think I ever will be. Sometimes I think about that leather journal wedged between the floorboards, and I wonder if she put it there on purpose. If some part of her wanted me to find it, if she was so tired of lying that she needed someone else to know the truth, even if it meant destroying everything. Or maybe she was just careless. Maybe she thought I'd never go down to the basement. Maybe she thought she could keep lying forever. I'll never know for sure. And maybe that's the point. When someone betrays you that completely, you don't get the luxury of understanding them anymore. You just get the wreckage they leave behind, and you have to figure out how to build something new from it. The last time I drove past Pinnacle Financial Group, I noticed they'd changed their exterior signage. New logo, new colors, new management. Jessica's office on the 5th floor was dark. Someone else sits there now, probably, building their own careful facade of success and stability, probably unaware that the person before them was stealing blind the entire time. That's what I learned from all of this. The people closest to you can hide in plain sight. You can wake up next to them every morning and have no idea who they really are. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing about trust is that it makes you stop looking. I stopped looking a long time ago. I'm trying to start again.